Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to PSN's first annual Stanley Cup Playoff Preview Show. I'm Brennan, and I'll be your host tonight.
Hi, everybody. I'm Corey Eisenberg.
My name is Samrath.
Tonight we're going to be going to give previews of the first rounds and also the regular season trophy winners. Let's start with the Eastern Conference, and we got the Penguins versus the Lightning, Washington Capitals versus the New York Rangers, Buffalo Sabres versus the Philadelphia Flyers, and the Montreal Canadiens versus the Boston Bruins. Let's start off with our hometown team, the Pittsburgh Penguins and Tampa Bay Lightning.
And we'll start with the guy who's not from Pittsburgh here. And even though I'm not from Pittsburgh, I do like what the Penguins have been doing, especially with the injuries to Crosby and Malkin. It's going to be a tough series, don't get me wrong. Tampa Bay has a lot of good young talent. It's going to be a great series, but I think in the end the Penguins will move on in 6 games on to round 2.
Well, me being the great pessimist I am, I'm going to pick the Lightning here. I think you just look at the differences in rosters. At some point, not having Malkin and Crosby is going to catch up to the Penguins. I know they have the edge in goaltending, but I think the Lightning's offense is just going to be too much. I like the Lightning here.
It's certainly been an interesting season for the Penguins this year with so many injuries, and they've battled back so hard to get to this point. This series is going to be all about defense of the Penguins versus the high-scoring offense of the Tampa Bay Lightning. They certainly have the edge in power play, but Penguins come in with one of the top-ranked penalty kills. I think the experience of the Penguins and the defense, especially with Marc-Andre Fleury, is going to counterbalance Martin St. Louis, Steven Stamkos, and Vinny Lecavalier. I take the Penguins in 6. The next series, let's go with the Philadelphia Flyers and the Buffalo Sabres.
You got the Flyers, a team nobody likes unless you're from Philadelphia, and the Flyers going with a load of injuries right now. Chris Pronger, who knows what his status is going to be for this series. I just like the way Buffalo's been playing down the stretch. They really had to win a lot of games to get into the playoffs. I think they carry that momentum forward, while the Flyers have really been in the playoffs not the way they want to be playing. They've been struggling these last 6 weeks. I think the Sabres win this series in 7 games.
I'd really like to pick the Flyers here. Lots of injuries going on, questionable goaltending, the fact that no one really likes them. But I just look at the Sabres. I don't know how they're going to score goals. I know they have Ryan Miller, but Ryan Miller's not been up to his standards this year. Look at his goals against average. I think overall the Flyers will take this in 6 games. Just too much talent, too deep.
I'm actually going to agree with Corey on this one. The Sabres have been the hotter team coming to the playoffs, while the Flyers have just kind of backed in. They have goaltending issues. It has been an issue all season. And even though they've been one of the deeper teams, Chris Pronger being day-to-day is a huge issue. I think the Sabres, along with Ryan Miller, and we've all seen what he can do, are going to find a way to win. Sabres in 7. Next series, Washington Capitals versus the New York Rangers.
This is a very intriguing series, not just because I'm wearing my Rangers sweater here, but if you look at this matchup, it's not your typical 1 versus 8 matchup. The Rangers, who are the 8th seed, won 3 out of the 4 regular season matchups with Washington, and 2 of the games they won 6-0 and 7-0. They manhandled this Washington team. The Rangers have a tendency to play very well against the Washington Capitals. Henrik Lundqvist plays very strong brand of hockey against this team. Alex Ovechkin has had his struggles against the Rangers, but I think in the end Washington will get it done. It's going to take 7 games, but the Capitals will get it done.
Well, I think the series all comes down to 2 players for the Rangers, Marian Gaborik and Henrik Lundqvist. Of course, you got the clash of characters with coaching with John Tortorella and Bruce Boudreau. The return of Mike Green will also be very important, but I think unless Marian Gaborik can come out with some kind of spark, Henrik Lundqvist can play out of his mind like Halak did last year to take down the Capitals. I think the Capitals will have a pretty easy time. I don't see any of those 2 magical things happening. I think the Capitals will take it in 5 games.
Well, unfortunately, I agree. The Capitals have just been one of the better teams in the entire league this season. Questions in goaltending, we don't really know who's going to start each and every game. It's kind of a day-to-day thing. But like we said, with Ovechkin and Semin and guys like Mike Green and Brooks Lake in the back, they've been such a tough team where guys like Ryan Callahan for the Rangers injured and not going to play this series. It's going to be hard for the goaltender, Henrik Lundqvist, to keep the intensity up to this entire season because he's going to be battered so much. I'm actually going to take the Capitals in 6 games. The next series is probably one of the most interesting, the Montreal Canadiens versus the Boston Bruins.
All right, you have an original 6 matchup between these 2 teams. I actually think it's the easiest matchup out of the first 4 in the Eastern Conference here. I think Boston has just too much firepower for Montreal, and even though these teams have a great rivalry and a great history, I think the Bruins win this series in 6 games, and they're going to be a dangerous team in the coming rounds.
Well, this is a pure bloodbath in every sense. So physical. Teams are just going to be beating each other up. I think this comes down to Carey Price Great regular season, but can he do in the playoffs? A couple years ago when the Canadiens were the number 1 seed, he fell flat on his back in the playoffs. I think the Bruins just too much depth, too much talent. Tim Thompson is just playing out of his mind. I think the Bruins with their talent level will take it in 6 games here.
Again, I agree with Corey and Simrath. Bruins have been one of the best defensive teams all year. Tim Thomas is one of the Vezina Trophy candidates, and they have so many people that can hurt you in so many different ways. Carey Price is going to be under siege. Montreal has lost a couple guys with trade deadlines and things like that. It's going to be really physical because Montreal's still angry about Zdeno Chara hitting back here already in the regular season. Probably aren't going to see as many fights as you think because it's the playoffs, but this is going to be a really physical series, but I still think Boston has the edge. Boston in 6 games. That wraps it up for the Eastern Conference. Now let's head out west, and let's start with the Vancouver Canucks and the Chicago Blackhawks.
And Vancouver, the team that had the best record of any team this year, probably the trendy pick to win the Stanley Cup, and I see them getting past the Blackhawks here, even though Chicago was able to get into the playoffs despite losing the last day of the regular season. They'll make it interesting, but Vancouver just has too much with the Sedin twins, a load of talent on that team, and they will get it done in 6 games.
Well, I think this is the one team that Vancouver Canucks, who've been doing so well all year, did not want to face. They've been in the past 2 years. Interesting to keep in mind, look at the third period. The past 2 times they've played them, Blackhawks have outscored the Canucks 24-8 in the third period. That's really what's propelled their 2 series wins the past 2 years. Also, I think the health of the blue line for Vancouver, their physical play against Chicago, and what's essentially a rivalry, will be really key. Also, keep in mind, Dave Bolland, who's been out a while, is coming back for this series. He's had success shutting down the Sedin twins in the past. I think the Hawks can get a couple games here, but I think the Canucks are just going to have too much firepower, too much depth offensively. Luongo in net. I'll take the Canucks in 6 games here.
Very interesting matchups here, but it's going to be all about revenge for the Canucks. They coming into this playoffs as the President's Trophy winner, meaning they had the most points of any team. And they also have the Art Ross Trophy winner, Daniel Sedin, most points in the league. His brother Henrik and fellow teammate Brian Kessler and Roberto Luongo definitely have a lot of playoff experience. This Chicago team is not the same team that won the Stanley Cup last year. They don't have goaltender Antti Niemi, no Dustin Byfuglien. Some of the key guys have left since this season started. And although there's definitely an interesting rivalry here, I don't think Chicago has what it takes to take down the best team in the league right now, the Vancouver Canucks. And I'm going to say Canucks in 5 games. Now let's go with a really interesting matchup, the Nashville Predators versus the Anaheim Ducks.
Here you have Anaheim, who really came out of nowhere to get home ice advantage in a series. They were potentially going to be eliminated from the playoffs, but they really had a nice surge late into the season. I just love the way they're playing right now. The Anaheim Mighty Ducks will win this series in 5 games.
I think this might be the most interesting matchup of the first round. You have the Ducks offense with Lubomir Veznovsky, Bobby Ryan, and Solani, who's come back real strong this year. Getzlav, Corey Perry, an MVP candidate, Saku Koivu. Great offense, but they're going up against a great, disciplined Predators defense. Tuukka Rask has been unbelievable in goal. I think defense will beat offense here. I like the Predators in 7 games.
I agree. This is a very, very interesting matchup. All season long, Nashville's been under the radar. They have no big-name players, but guys like Marty Erat, Sergei Kostitsyn, Shea Weber, and Patrick Hornquist, along with goaltender Pekka Rinne, who I'm picking for the Vezina Trophy, have been phenomenal. This is going to be a hard, grinded-out series, but I think the Predators are actually going to take it in 6 games. Next up, Detroit Red Wings versus Phoenix Coyotes.
And what can you say here? You have the Red Wings, a team that has so much history, and they're really playing well right now. This was a great series last year. Detroit won it in 7 games. I have a similar story this year. I think the Red Wings will get it done in 6 games this year.
Yeah, interesting rematch of last year that won the whole way. This was a great series during the regular season. 3 of the 4 games went to overtime. I think the key is going to be Ilya Bryzgalov. He's all what it comes down to with the Coyotes. He's not been as strong this year after having an MVP type of year last year. I think that trend is going to be the key here with the Red Wings. I think they'll take it in 5 games. Just too much depth, too much experience, too much overall talent for the Coyotes to handle, who really don't have much offensive firepower at all.
It was a great season for Phoenix, but they had bad luck drawing the Wings in the first round. We've seen these guys before, guys like Thomas Holmstrom, Dan Cleary, and of course Nick Lidstrom. They're going to be way too much for these young Coyote players. This is going to be a quick series, I think, Red Wings in 5. So the last series we have to cover is the San Jose Sharks versus the Los Angeles Kings.
And every year, the Sharks always have a great regular season, fold in the playoffs. Last year, they made somewhat of a deep run into the Western Conference Finals. I see them advancing this year. I don't know how far they're going to go, but I like the Sharks to win this series in 5 games.
Yeah, I think LA's met their match here. Anze Kopitar, Justin Williams, both out this series. I don't know how they're going to find their offensive firepower. As for the Sharks, they have plenty of offensive firepower. Best power play in the league, 23.5%. 4 players with 10-plus power play goals. I think this is going to be an easy series here to call. Sharks in 5 games.
The Sharks just have way too many weapons this year, including starting goaltender Antti Niemi, who won the Cup last year with the Chicago Blackhawks. Unfortunately, like Simrath said, the Kings are without Anze Kopitar and some of their offensive weapons. There's just no way they're going to get past this really, really deep, really quick, really talented Sharks team. Sharks in 5. Now we're going to cover the NHL regular season awards. First up is the Vezina Trophy, which goes to the best goaltender. My pick is Pekka Rinne from the Nashville Predators.
Going with Tim Thomas from the Boston Bruins.
Got to go with Tim Thomas from the Boston Bruins here.
Next up, the Selke Award, which goes to the top defensive forward, and my pick is Ryan Kessler from the Vancouver Canucks.
Gotta go with Kessler as well, just too good.
I'll go with another Canuck here, Manny Malhotra.
Continuing that trend, we have the Hart Trophy, which goes to the league MVP. I'm going to go with this year's Art Ross Trophy winner, which means the most points in the season, Daniel Sedin.
I like Corey Perry from the Anaheim Ducks.
I like Corey Perry here as well.
Calder Trophy goes to the Rookie of the Year. My pick is Logan Couture from the San Jose Sharks. He's had a great season.
I have Couture as well.
Logan Couture all the way.
The Jack Adams Trophy goes to the top NHL Coach of the Year, and my pick is Dan Bosman from the Pittsburgh Penguins for what he's done for this injury-ravaged Penguins team.
I'm going with the guy who changed his style, got the #1 seed in the East, Bruce Boudreau, for the Washington Capitals.
Got to go with the Danny Bosma here from the Penguins.
The Norris Trophy goes to the top defender in the league. I'm going to go with the dark horse pick here, Keith Yandel of the Phoenix Coyotes.
Going with Nicholas Lidstrom from the Detroit Red Wings.
Give me Shea Weber from the Nashville Predators for the best defenseman.
That wraps up our first show, Puckheads. Join us next time as we cover round 2.